Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Geography for You. Today we are going to start with chapter number 5 of class 12th Geography, Primary Activities. This is from the first book, Fundamental of Human Geography. Now from this chapter onwards we are entering into the third unit, which will talk about economic activities. Now what is this economic activity? Economic activity means any activity for which you are earning money, or you are getting wages, you are getting profit. In any form you are getting money or monetary gains. That work is called as economic activity. In entire country, economic activity can be done in different sectors of economy. We have divided sectors of economy in 4 major groups. First one is called as the primary activities or primary sector. Primary sector means where we are doing work related to nature. We are extracting things from nature, or we are gaining things from nature, like agriculture and aligned activities like lumbering, mining. In this we are only extracting something from nature, so directly we are dealing with nature and our surroundings. Then comes the secondary sector or secondary activities, in which we are refining the things that we are getting from primary sources. So we are adding value to it, and this is done in factories, industries. So we call it as a manufacturing sector. Similarly, we have a third sector that we call as a tertiary sector, that has evolved later, but it is gaining a great momentum nowadays. This is basically service sector. Like we have banking facility, like we have insurance facility. We are not generating anything new, we are not creating anything new, but we are providing services like doctors, like all other professionals. So they all fall under tertiary activities. Then we have quaternary activities. This is the higher stage of tertiary, where we are talking about research and development. Nowadays we are doing number of research in various fields, like developing different vaccines, developing new technologies. That all is done under quaternary activities. We have higher one also, about which we would be dealing in later chapters. In this chapter we are going to focus on primary activities. Now, as I have told you, that primary activities are directly dependent on environment. So we are utilizing earth's resources. So the main focus in this chapter is going to be on agriculture, related activities, and mining. So let's move on. But before that, there is one interesting fact that we should know about. Different people or the workforce that are engaged in different sectors of economy, they are referred with their uniform color, and we call them as different collar worker. For primary activities, the people who are engaged in primary activities, they are often referred as red collar worker. Similarly, people who are engaged or working in factories or manufacturing sector, they are often referred as blue collar workers. And next to them comes the tertiary sector, where people have more of a mental job rather than a physical job, and we call them as a white collar worker. And the higher one that we were talking about, the fifth sector of economy, about which we have yet not talked, the people here are big policy makers. They are the most influential people of any country, so they are called as the golden collar worker. I hope this fact is quite interesting to all of you. Now coming to the primary activities. The first primary activity that human being has done as soon as they came on the surface of the earth was hunting and gathering. Now, as the word suggests, hunting means they were dependent on the animals, wild animals that were surrounding them, because they were living in forested regions, in caves. And gathering means whatever they could gather from the forest region for their survival. So the two things that they were doing mainly was hunting animals and then collecting or gathering edible plants and other resources. So they were totally dependent on their natural surroundings. The reason is that their technology was very less. Even today, if we see, there are areas in world where underdeveloped communities or tribal communities still practice this type of lifestyle, and this usually happens in a very harsh type of climate, or the climate that is not conducive for people. It can also happen in too hot climate or cold climate, means unfavorable climatic condition. The people who are close to the coastal areas, they also catch fish for their survival, because their technological progress is very low, so they cannot harm their surroundings to the extent that it will create some major ecological issues. They are using very basic primitive tools like stones, twigs, arrows. So the number of animals they are going to kill, the number of trees they are going to cut is going to be quite low. On the other hand, if I talk about the present technology, so with the help of technology we are doing it at a very large scale, and that is what is creating problem. But hunting and gathering was not a major ecological issue. Now in these areas, what we see that people do extract things from neighboring areas which were usually forest, and all the needs of their food, shelter, clothing was met by these collected resources only. Even today, if I see, we can divide majorly, we can find two areas where this is practiced: the high latitude zones, where in Canada, northern Eurasia, southern Chile. Then in the lower latitude zone, we have Amazon basin, Africa, tropical Africa. If you see these two areas, the first one, that is of higher latitude, again extreme climate, very cold. And if I talk about low latitude Amazon or tropical Africa, it's high rainfall region, very high rainfall region rather. Now what is the future of this activity in present context? If I talk about your hunting and gathering in present context, we are still practicing it, but the things that we are collecting from the neighboring areas, their number, their quantity is very less. So if I talk about exports or about bigger markets, this is very insufficient. Though in modern societies, people have started with the commercial gathering, they are using very important products like for cosmetics, for fibers like tannin, like quinine. So these type of things are being extracted on a commercial basis, but again their contribution to world economy at global level remains quite low. So to sum up quickly, that hunting and gathering is the most primitive activity done by human being. It is conducted today also it is conducted in the regions of harsh climate, whether it's too hot, too cold, too rainy or too dry. Very basic tools, very basic technology. People are getting their all needs met of food, shelter, clothing from their surrounding regions only. Today commercial gathering has taken momentum, but it is quite insufficient to become a large global activity. Moving on to the next activity, see, after we have spent years as a hunters and gatherers, then people started realizing slowly that as their number was increasing, so this activity was not sufficient. They need to have something more, and that has taken them to the next level, that is called as a pastoralism. Now pastoralism as a word means when people are moving from one area to another area with their animals. This indicates that by this time they have started domestication of animals. Now domestication of animal has helped them to have a settled life. Now they were not settled life, but to a more sustainable life. Now for this we have two divisions. One that was conducted at the primitive state, which was called as nomadic herding, and one that we are doing presently in a very profitable environment. We call it as a commercial livestock rearing. So pastoralism, when started, its form was of nomadic herding. In nomadic herding, the community that was practicing nomadic herding, they used to move from one area to another area to search for new grazing grounds for their animals, because all the needs of food, clothing, shelter, tools, transportation, for everything they were dependent on their animals. So animals were their real wealth. So they always wanted the area in which they can have better facilities for their animals. So we find even today, again this is a primitive activity, so it has to be associated with the underdeveloped communities or traditional communities or tribal communities, and also harsh climate, because where you will have more opportunities, more options, you will not go for these basic activities. So again nomadic herding is practiced in the regions of the world which are not conducive for other activities, like the Sahara region of Africa, Kalahari region of Africa, then also the Arabian Peninsula, that is again a desert region, then the central part of Asia, that is Taklamakan and Gobi Desert, then the Siberian region of Russia, that is again a very cold climatic region. So again, these harsh climate don't give much options to people, so they have to depend on whatever resources they are getting. Now there is a tendency in nomadic herding, especially in the mountain region, that people shift their pastures or their areas according to season. This movement according to season is called as the transhumance. Transhumance simply means that during summer season, the group of people or the nomadic herders, they move to the mountain region where new fresh grasses have appeared, and these are very, very fertile pastures for their animal rearing. But during winters, it is exactly opposite, because now mountains are covered with snow, so they have to come down to the plain region of the valley where they will spend the entire winter season. So this seasonal movement from mountain to plain and from plain to mountain is called as the transhumance. Now this again is not a very profitable activity, as we have seen the resources and technology both are very limited in this practice. The animals that are reared by different groups depend on the climate of the region. Like if I talk about Sahara region or Asiatic desert, the main animals that are reared are sheep, goat, camel. Whereas if I talk about the higher latitude and altitude regions like Tibet, like your Arctic region, then reindeers are the most, yak reindeers are the most important animals. Now another thing, the importance of nomadic herding is coming down with time because the open areas are shrinking. The imposition of political boundaries and the new settlement plan for these people has come as a hindrance, and now the people who were used to in these activities are moving or shifting to other activities. The next part of pastoralism is commercial livestock rearing. In commercial livestock rearing, we find, see, the word commercial means that people are rearing livestock for profit purpose. So when you are doing something for profit purpose or for export purpose, you need to have, high level of investment in that work. So this activity, commercial livestock rearing, is highly capital intensive. Here animals are reared on ranches. Ranches are very, very, very big farm areas. They are fenced and regulated properly. In this, they have different parcels or regions which are used at different time. Like if we have entire ranch, we can divide it into 6 parts. And first, animals will graze only on part 1. And when part 1 is completely consumed, then animals would be shifted to part 2, and part 1 would be given time to recover or again become fertile. So this is how, on rotation basis, they are going to use grasslands or the grazing grounds for their animals. Now animals basically are sheep, cattle, goats and horses that are reared for their meat, wool, hide, skin, etc. And then they are packed in a scientific manner and exported to different countries or in the world market. Now the animals are reared on scientific basis, and the emphasis is on breeding, genetic improvement, disease control and health care of animal. It means it is highly scientific, and because it is highly scientific, so it is mainly practiced in the developed regions of the world, like in New Zealand, like in Australia, Argentina, the United States of America, especially where we have grasslands. So in these areas we have this very important activity that is called as commercial livestock rearing. So till this point we have discussed about the primary activities that humans were doing right from the beginning of the point. First was hunting and gathering, then we came to pastoralism, which was divided into 2 groups, nomadic herding and commercial livestock rearing. Now we enter into the most important economic activity that is called as agriculture. Now agriculture simply means that growing of certain plants in a controlled environment to meet our own needs of food and fodder. Now agriculture the point from where we call it as the agricultural revolution was the point where human life became settled. So you can think how important this activity must be. Now agriculture can be divided or grouped or classified on the basis of the methods of farming, different type of crops that are grown, or the animals or livestock that are reared. Now this is a long topic, so I would be covering few in this video and few in next video, just to give you the view of this entire thing, that agriculture can be grouped into subsistence agriculture, which can further be divided into primitive subsistence agriculture and intensive subsistence agriculture. Again, intensive subsistence agriculture can be divided into two groups: intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by wet paddy cultivation, and intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by crop other than paddy. Then we have plantation agriculture. Extensive commercial grain cultivation comes next. Then next is mixed farming. Moving further, we have dairy farming. Then we have Mediterranean agriculture. And the last one would be market gardening and horticulture. So let's begin with subsistence agriculture. Now here you need to understand this word subsistence. Now word subsistence means the farmer is growing whatever they are growing on the field for the fulfillment of their own requirement or the requirements of their family. So the surplus that is generated is not very huge. The surplus that is generated, either it's consumed in the local market or in the domestic market. They are not going beyond it because the population pressure is quite high and technology levels are quite low. Now subsistence agriculture can be broadly grouped into two categories. The first one is primitive subsistence agriculture and the other one is intensive subsistence agriculture. So let's come first to the primitive subsistence agriculture. Let us try to break this term in three parts. Primitive. The word primitive is associated with the technology. Primitive means the technology is not developed. So the people are using very basic tools for cultivation and their methods are also unscientific. So this primitive subsistence agriculture maybe was the first form of agriculture practiced by human beings. Again, it is associated with the harsh climatic regions of the world, like we have a very high rainfall region of Amazon, or we have a very high rainfall region of Africa that we call as the Congo Basin, and the Indonesian region. Now Southeast Asia or Indonesian region. Now these areas, they experience very high rainfall, so definitely they will have very dense plant growth. So these areas are covered by evergreen forests. So the people who are practicing primitive subsistence cultivation or agriculture, they first clear a piece of land, then they use fire to destroy whatever is left over on the land, and the ashes that are being generated are because of fire, they add to the fertility of the soil, and this method is called as slash and burn agriculture. So they first slash the tree, then burn the residue. The ash will increase the fertility of the soil, and then they are going to use this piece of land for few years, maybe 2 or 5. Now in this period, they are not going to use any fertilizers. So they are totally dependent on the natural fertility of the soil, and their tools are very basic, like sticks and hoes. Now after using one piece of land for 3 to 5 years, they are going to move to another land piece because this land has now lost its fertility. So when they will move to the new land, they will again practice the same thing. They will slash the trees, burn it, and then use it for agriculture. So they are shifting from one area to another, and for that reason primitive subsistence agriculture is also called as shifting cultivation, because they are moving from one area to another. They are temporarily living on a piece of land, but for a longer period of time, till that area is fertile for crop production. So this is because we are doing deforestation at a large scale, so this is not a very good method of agriculture. It is highly unscientific. Now this is known by different names in different regions of the world. like it is called as the Jhuming in northeastern states of India, Melpa in Central America and in Mexico, Melpa in America, Central America and Mexico, and Ledang in Indonesia and Malaysia. Now, because now governments are becoming quite sensitive about deforestation, so these communities are losing edge and they are pressured to do settled type of agriculture rather than the shifting cultivation. Next we come to intensive subsistence agriculture. Now, as I have discussed earlier, that intensive subsistence agriculture can be divided into two groups: intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by wet paddy and intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by crops other than paddy. Now, again we will split this word intensive subsistence. Now, intensive word means you are doing maximum. You are taking out maximum from land. So this maximum is needed in densely populated region. So for this reason, intensive subsistence agriculture is practiced in densely populated regions of monsoon Asia. Asia, we know it's the most populated continent of the world, and in the regions where we have monsoon type of climate, which is towards the southern part of Asia and towards the eastern part of Asia, we have intensive subsistence agriculture. Now, the second word subsistence again indicates that the level of technology is quite low and the surplus that is generated is equally less. So the first form of intensive subsistence agriculture, in which we have major crop as paddy or rice, this is practiced in the region where we have good amount of rainfall. So where we have rainfall above 200 centimeter, intensive subsistence agriculture is dominated by rice cultivation or paddy cultivation. The most basic thing about intensive subsistence agriculture is that the farm area is very small, because we have very high population density, so the farm areas ought to be small. And then when farm areas are small, so you don't have to hire any labor from outside region, so only family labor is doing work on land. The use of machinery is also limited because farm size is small, so your output would be less, profits would be less, so the farmers cannot afford very high machinery, and even it is not economical to use sophisticated machinery on small piece of land. So most of the work is done by manual labor. We are using manure, we are using the agricultural waste as a manure in this type of cultivation. Yield per unit is very high. If I talk about yield per unit, because you are taking maximum out of land, you want maximum capacity of land to be utilized, because population is very high, you need more food. But if I talk about productivity per labor, it is very low, because the complete family is working on land. This much labor is actually not needed, but because they are not having any other employment opportunities or options, so they all are working. So per labor productivity is quite low, though the yield per unit is very high. So these are the common characteristic of intensive subsistence agriculture. In intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by wet paddy, the only difference is that their major crop is paddy. Then the other one, intensive subsistence agriculture dominated by other crop than paddy. As the name suggests, that due to less rainfall and if other geographical factors like relief etc., paddy cannot be grown here. So we are using alternate crop like wheat, like soybean, like barley. So these are grown in the regions of China, Manchuria, North Korea, North Japan, and even in India. So in India, we see that on eastern side of Gangetic Plain we have dominated paddy, but as we move towards the interior part, we have more of wheat cultivation. This is how with decrease in rainfall, wet paddy is replaced by other than wet paddy. So these are the two major subdivisions of intensive subsistence agriculture. Now coming to the next one, that is plantation agriculture. Now this is very interesting part. Now plantation agriculture is a legacy of colonial period. We see that when European imperialistic forces, they came to their colonies in tropics. They could see, the climate was conducive for the growth of tea, coffee, cocoa, rubber, cotton, sugarcane, bananas, etc., which they would sell in their own markets. So they encouraged growing of these commercial crops, but then it was done on a very huge area, and these huge areas were called as estates or plantation farms. This type of agriculture is actually started by colonial forces, but the plantation farms were in tropical region where they set up their colonies. Now the capital investment was very high, and the farms was managed just like a factory or industry, where they have their managers, they have all the technical support, and all scientific methods of cultivation was practiced. Only one single crop was grown in one estate. Like if it is tea farm, it has to be completely tea farm. If it is coffee farm, it is completely coffee farm. And for such a huge area where you have to do many things manually, so you have to have a cheap labor, and that was the reason why they selected the tropical areas where population was quite high. And also you need to have a very good connectivity between estate and factories, because the things that you are growing in estates or the farms are basically for the industry. So they are the raw material for industries. So until and unless there is a good transportation links between two, your crops will be wasted. So for that reason, there is very good connection or transportation system between farms that we call as estate and the factories. Now this type of farms were established in French established cocoa and coffee plantation in West Africa. British set up large tea gardens in India and Sri Lanka, rubber plantation in Malaysia, and sugar cane and banana plantation in West Indies. So this is how the entire world was converted into the plantation agriculture farm. Today also we find that after colonial forces, they have retreated, the countries has become independent. So now the ownership of majority of plantation has passed into the hands of the government or nationals of the countries concerned. Now before moving to the next part, we'll because this video has become quite long, so the rest of the part I would be covering in next video. A quick sum up: we have discussed about primary activities, hunting and gathering, then pastoralism, which was divided into nomadic herding and commercial livestock rearing. Then we started with the agriculture, where we have covered subsistence agriculture, that has two divisions: primitive subsistence agriculture and intensive subsistence agriculture, and then plantation agriculture.